Welcome back to another video, guys. It's your boy Wraith Hoops, and today we've got one that hits a little close to home for me personally. I'm going to be talking about how good Blake Griffin really was at the peak of his career. Many people believe that the Blake Griffin we've been seeing over the past few seasons has just been a role player, just a guy that shows up, plays okay minutes on the court, isn't particularly good at defense, doesn't do anything special, shoots threes at a decent clip. And honestly, that's not the Blake Griffin that I grew up on. Many people remember prime Blake Griffin with the Clippers, whom he spent, I believe, roughly 8 seasons with, as a high flyer in that Lob City action with the point guard of the legendary Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan running the 5 spot. They were just a tandem that could be not outjumped at any point in the game. As long as one of them was on the floor and Chris Paul threw that lob, it was going in the hoop, regardless of what was going on. Blake Griffin was really a pioneer of the high-flying lob game. One of the favorite memories of many NBA fans was Blake Griffin punching a lob over Brandon Knight, who was getting embarrassed by literally everybody, starting with Kyrie Irving in the All-Star game that season. Now, he did repeatedly have multiple 20-point seasons, with the highest with them being him scoring a little over 24 points a game. He also followed that up with 9.5 boards and 4 assists. So he was a decent playmaker at the time, but he was known as mostly a lob threat and somebody that was going to get downhill, and whenever he was near the rim, he was a threat to put it in the hole. Which speaks volumes, because you have players nowadays, especially in the 5 spot, where you're not necessarily expected to shoot to be a decent big. You have your Rudy Gobert's of the world and your Clint Capella's of the world, whose job is more so to protect the rim and clean up the glass on the offensive side of the ball, grab defensive boards, and dunk whenever the opportunity presents itself, especially in pick and rolls when it gives opportunities for guards to get downhill. And if they can't get their shot off, just having that extra lob target near the rim to where if they put the ball up there, they know that somebody's going to put it down. When it came to Blake Griffin specifically, though, I would like to appreciate the maturity of his game as his career went on. He was at one point considered a one-trick pony who just, whenever he had the opportunity to take a jumper every now and then from the mid-range, he would do it. But that wasn't something that was big on his game, especially not from the three-point line, because in the first season that he actually played with the Clippers, he shot 29%. Admittedly, he averaged like half a three a game, but that just goes to show that not only was he in that era not likely to shoot a three, but he also just simply wasn't likely to make a three at that time. As his career went on and injuries started to pile up because of his play style, he did eventually adapt and learn how to shoot the three ball at a much better clip, to the point where at one point at the peak of his powers, during that transitional stage when he got traded from the Clippers to the Detroit Pistons, he was shooting roughly 6 threes a game. Now, those came with a little bit of a suspicious clip at times, but overall, it was a very important moment for him, because it was the point where you realized he's not the same high flyer that he once was, and this is who we're going to have to expect going forward. Now, the one time that he did shoot a little over 6 threes a game, his percentage did finally decrease to about 24%. But in the seasons where he averaged 5 attempts a game, and even at one point when he averaged 7 attempts a game with the Pistons, he did end up shooting 36% of those into the rim, which is very impressive considering that really the first decade of his career, he spent jumping out of the gym. Now, DeAndre Jordan obviously didn't see that same sort of success and became more of a lob target even in his Brooklyn days. And while he was never the paint protector that he was when he was with the Clippers, he still managed to hang around in the league because he was still athletic enough to finish at the rim comfortably and still protect the paint to a decent degree. Now, Blake Griffin, in the transition stages of his career, when he went to the Pistons, even though he was injured for a little bit of that and he became more hampered as you saw the injuries build up, there were a lot more times where you saw him really just filling out his game. There was a whole streak and a whole debate about whether he was truly as athletic as he once was, and people were really sad that he had turned into somebody that was just shooting jumpers. We appreciated the finesse because he all of a sudden just suddenly developed a handle out of seemingly nowhere to the point where he was getting downhill. But whenever he got to the rim, he wasn't dunking. He would just lay it up real fancy like, or he might just give you a generic lay. But the one time when he finally did dunk, everybody went crazy and it was all over social media. And that just goes to show how great his peak was. Because a lot of people, when you played against the Clippers, it was a winnable game. It wasn't going to be a simple win, even though they weren't a three-point shooting team, because there was a period of time when they had Jamal Crawford, who honestly to me is arguably, if not the best sixth man that's ever played the game. He was known for his immensely talented handle, and honestly, the handle is top 5 in league history, despite being a man that primarily came off of the bench. He was perennially a player that you could rely on to get you a bucket whenever you needed it, and he looked really good doing it. Add that on top of 2 lob targets that know how to finish and protect the rim, and a point floor general in Chris Paul, and they were a contender for a significant period of time. However, injuries in the playoffs really hampered their ability to punch it home. Things really didn't seem to take a dark turn for the worse up until the 2019-2020 season when he played for the Detroit Pistons, where he saw a period of decline with him only playing 18 games because of injury. Now, at that point, his athleticism had, to a certain extent, completely left him. And even in those games that he played, he only averaged 15.5 points, which was the first true decline that he experienced in his career, as he had never averaged beneath 18 in any previous season to that. The following year when he came back, he did manage to play 30 starts and 46 total games between the Detroit Pistons and the Brooklyn Nets when Detroit realized that he was just not going to be that same player. And in those games, he did average a total of 11 points and 5 boards, so he was a quality role player at that point. However, this is when fans really started to see him in a different light, and the younger generation of fans started to see this as the Blake Griffin that they're going to grow up on. They never got to experience the high flyer that finished at the rim and made highlight plays every single game, being on the SportsCenter top 10. The issue that I have with this is that really it's only been the past 4 seasons where he's been in a decline and then just seemingly hit rock bottom with Boston last season, where he only played in 41 games. He did end up managing 16 starts, but he only played roughly 14 minutes a night and averaged 4 points and 4 rebounds. So there wasn't much opportunity. Admittedly, that is a younger team focused around Jaylen Brown, who just got his massive contract extension, and the Jason Tatums of the world, and now Kristaps Porzingis. It is possible for them to re-sign Blake Griffin just to have a veteran role player on the roster and just have somebody to fill out with some confidence and somebody that has very strong playoff experience, because that does speak volumes. Having a young core with some good veteran presence in the locker room often catapults teams into not just contender status, but often making honestly beautiful runs into the playoffs, going into the postseason, and just making sure that they win those close games that really young teams that you've seen, particularly the Boston Celtics earlier on in the dynamic duo's careers, just them not being able to capitalize on it against younger and older players, in the instance when LeBron James was still in the East. He is to this point only 33, going on 34 years old, but we've really seen the end of Blake Griffin. I believe that he could play maybe 2 to 3 more seasons, but it doesn't seem like he's super pressed about it, which is a lovely thing because the ball at one point will stop bouncing. But I would like us to all manage to appreciate just how great he was in his prime and how much he gave to the game in those years, because honestly, those were the most exciting years of basketball. You had the 73-9 Warriors that set the record, only to go to the finals and give up a 3-1 play against LeBron James. And you saw that in the 2015-16 season. It was just a beautiful league at that point in time. And you still had Lob City, even though people really started to have the writing on the wall where this team's never going to get over the hump because of the injuries that they experienced in the postseason. And while that may have been true, it was still one heck of a ride to watch. With that being said, good morning, good evening, good night, no matter where you are on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.